It's just a good thing to do, and it's gonna make you feel better about getting deeper into the do-it-yourself, working on your rig yourself kind of thing. It's the gateway mechanic project. So hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. It's been a while, right? So what you saw already was me getting the 4Runner up onto blocks or wheel stands, excuse me, or two axle stands, or two vehicle stands, or two jack stands, or whatever you want to call those kind of things. Anyway, what you already saw was me putting it up there, getting it ready. I did that yesterday with the anticipation of doing this project yesterday, but when I pulled the tires off and inspected a few things, I realized that there was going to be some more work. More on that later, but just know for right now, I've got it in, we're jacked up. It's about 11:30 in the morning. It's hot and humid here, actually. Unlike the last time we were out here in the shop, it's not going to be into the high triple digits today, but it's going to be almost 100 degrees, and the humidity is about 6,000%, so it's actually turned into the devil's sauna, not just a jockstrap, or for my friends from Northern Europe, it's sauna. I know what I'm talking about, okay? Anyway, talking about changing oil and why this is something that every single overlander, off-roader, anybody in this community should absolutely know how to do and do for themselves. The number one first thing that you're gonna find with changing your own oil and why it's gonna be beneficial for you is gonna be the cost savings. So here's a spot where you can wring out a lot of cost savings on your end with just some time and some simple, relatively cheap tools. Yeah, you're gonna need a wrench or two to get at the drain plug and some drain pans, and it's gonna cost a little bit more the first time you do it, and then from the second time you do it forward, you're just gonna be recouping your cost savings every single time you change your oil. Now, there are some cheap places out there where you can get an oil change done for, you see the ads all the time, 30, 40 bucks here or there. The problem with that is that they are using the cheapest products. They use the cheapest stuff they can do. They're trying to keep their costs down. They're a business. They're in the business of making money, not giving you the best oil change you can at the cheapest price. So another thing that's gonna happen when you start to do your own oil changes is that you're going to be able to select the products you want on your vehicle. It's kind of like going to the bar, ordering a vodka and soda, but instead of having well vodka that they're gonna provide to you, you actually ask for the top shelf. Well, that's what you're gonna get when you do this yourself and you're able to pick your own fluids. Now, in the case of the 4Runner, I've run Mobil 1 in it since I've ever had it, and I've ran Mobil 1 in every Toyota engine I've ever had. And that's primarily because they build Toyota engines tighter than a Tupperware party. They don't generally leak, they run a long time, and they run even longer when you use a synthetic in them. Now, the Rover, I just use the cheapest dinosaur oil I can because I change oil like every 3,000 miles. And in that amount of time, you don't really have your conventional oils breaking down, so I just use the cheapest dinosaur oil I can to put in there, not the synthetic stuff. The other thing is that we all know that Land Rovers leak fluids. Well, synthetics tend to find their way out in places that normal oil doesn't. So using a synthetic in the Rover is just, well, it's a surefire recipe for me having to find and fix more oil leaks. So I don't use it in there. Now, the other thing is that I get to pick which oil filter I put on. You're gonna go down to those cheap oil change places, they're gonna slap on the cheapest, crappiest oil filters you can. Now, shopping at Walmart like we have been, we've been actually fortunate lately in that Walmart's carrying OEM Toyota filters now. So at this low price, I get to use the highest grade product for my engine that was designed for my engine from the manufacturer. And to me, that's worth it. One thing that I will stress that you kind of miss at taking your thing into a dealership, or not a dealership, but an oil change place, is that they generally will have a mechanic who looks over your vehicle and tells you what's wrong with it. And for the most part though, that's usually just a reason for them to try to upsell you into things, but it has helped me out in the past, like when we just had the alignment done on the Rover, and the gentleman did notice that my U-joint was loose, and he pointed it out to me, and I was able to take it home and get it fixed, just tighten the bolts up. But still, it's nice having that extra set of eyes on there. I guess you balance that out. Do you want to be upsold? Do you want another set of eyes looking at it? I don't know. But it segues into my next point, and that's when you do your own oil changes, you're gonna get what I like to call intimate knowledge of your vehicle. You're gonna see it from a perspective that you don't see every day. When you do this, when you open the hood, when you crawl in here, you're pulling dipsticks, you're pulling off filters, you're crawling underneath, you're pulling drain pans. And so when I have those pieces and parts down, I can be able to look in there and visually inspect what's going on with my vehicle, and I know what's going on myself because I put my own eyes on it. It's a great way to catch things like when I pulled the tires off to rotate them, which you should do every time you change your oil. It gives me the ability to look in and check on my brake pad linings. I've had a squeak going on a little bit down here on the front right. I figured it was either a bearing or it could be a brake pad. I saved that for when we brought it in to work on it, and I pulled the wheel off and I looked, and sure enough, my brake linings were worn low. That was yesterday when I was jacking it up to get ready for this job. So I hopped in the Rover to go pick up Nicole at the end of her workday and swung in through AutoZone on the way back and got a new set of brake pads, which I'm gonna go ahead and change while I'm doing the rest of this oil change. Now, another thing that you get, and this is a one to be aware of if you're into older vehicles like I am, is that older drive lines don't have sealed U-joints. It means you need to get a grease gun out and go under there and find all the zerks in your U-joints and grease your driveline. And about in the last 20 years, manufacturers have really started getting away from conventional greasable joints and just giving you these so-called sealed joints that you supposedly ostensibly never have to service. It's just when they fail. I actually prefer greasing something because it forces me to go under there and look at it, put my hands on it, shake it around, test it, put some grease in it, and you find out what the condition of it is every time I go in there every 3,000 miles to grease it. You don't get that with your sealed stuff, but the thing that you gotta watch out for is when you take it to a oil change shop on your own, those guys at the shop that have been working on the most recent vehicles don't always think, hey, this is an older one, it's got a greasable driveline. In fact, the last time I had the 4Runner in before we had a garage to get an oil change done at a service center up the street, I kind of leaned on him like, hey, you know, I need to have the driveline greased. Yeah, we'll get around to it. I get a call back from him an hour after I dropped my vehicle off saying, yeah, we got the oil change done, we're getting ready to grease the driveline, but just to let you know, it's gonna be like a half hour or 45 minutes of shop time that we're gonna bill in addition to the oil change. And at that point, I just politely told the gentleman to fuck himself and told him that I'll go ahead and pull my coveralls out and crawl under here and grease it myself after I pick it up on the hot asphalt on a Phoenix day, because I really wasn't gonna pay him $75 to do something I could do in 5 minutes. This used to be something that everywhere you went, they always called it oil, lube, filter. Well, the lube part was them grabbing a grease gun and lubricating your driveline and all of your joints. That segues into the next point we're gonna have, and that's when, if you do this work by yourself on your own, you only have yourself to blame when something gets messed up. Maybe it's happened to you, or maybe you're just one of the fortunate ones and you only know someone it's happened to, but invariably, you're gonna run into an oil change shop that's either not gonna get a plug on too tight or a filter on tight enough, and after a certain time, it's either gonna fall out or it's gonna start leaking out in a huge stream of oil that you're gonna have everywhere, and you're gonna have to stop, seal everything back up, put more oil in it to continue on your way. Or if you don't notice it, you're gonna lose all your oil and then you're gonna lose your engine. The other thing that'll happen is these lazy bastards will use impact guns to put your drain plug back into your oil pan, which will result in it being stripped and invariably probably cost you a whole oil pan, which is a not pleasant thing to have to change out on an engine while it's inside of an engine bay. Another one, and it's something you should do at every oil change, is to rotate your tires. Now, there's a lot of places you'll go anymore in the corporate safety world that's been pushed on them by their insurance companies and God knows who else. And that's this notion that, like, if tires have too much wear one way or another, they can't be rotated because it's not safe. Now, when you do it yourself, you're taking it into your own hands and you're doing it yourself. But it's gonna get done. As you can see, this is something that really pisses me off. The other thing is that, like, sometimes if they just deem that your wear isn't right, they're not gonna do it, and they're gonna make you buy tires from them. Do it yourself. You'll know it gets done and you'll know it gets done right. Another one, I used to have a friend who worked for a local Mercedes-Benz dealership here in town. They had a rash of mechanics not getting lug nuts tight enough onto wheels on Mercedes-Benzes, you can imagine. And they had a whole incidences where they were buying and paying and fixing to repair vehicles because as soon as they drove them off the lot, the wheels fell off right in the middle of Scottsdale Road. They ended up going back and researching it and finding out that the mechanics weren't using a correct torque tool to correctly torque the lugs of their wheels down. Well, if you're gonna do this yourself, you're gonna get your handy torque wrench out, you're gonna set it at your factory specified torque load, and you're gonna torque your wheels back on to spec, and you're gonna know it got done because you did it. And you're the only one you have to blame for when this goes wrong. That inevitably will lead me to the fifth and final reason why you, as an overlander or off-road enthusiast, should change your own oil, and that's simply the empowerment factor. I don't know how else to say this without making it sound like it's some new age thing, but here's the reality of it, is that like not everybody in our world, in our society, grew up having auto shop class. When I was younger, it was starting to get phased out. I was fortunate enough to have had those educational experiences and understand how these things work to a degree, and I've worked in industries where I've had to do this, but not everybody has. And I imagine that if you're someone who's watching this, it may be because you're interested in getting into the world of overlanding and off-roading, and you may or may not have a whole lot of experience. And I'm gonna tell you right now, changing your own oil, it's like an easy win for you. It's one of those ones where it's like, if you can do this, you can realize that, holy shit, this work isn't all that hard. It just takes a little bit of time and thoughtfulness and elbow grease. And changing oil for somebody who's worked on vehicles is like, it's elementary, it's rudimentary, but I get it. It can be very intimidating to someone who's very new. And what I'm gonna tell you is don't be afraid of it. Find manuals, find your YouTube, find this, find that. Search. You've got a whole world of information out there that I guarantee you that if you just took whatever vehicle it is you have right now, typed in the make, model, and year, and how to change the oil, you're gonna find something somewhere. Somebody's gonna give you those instructions that are gonna show you where the drain plugs are, where the filters are, where the fill caps are, and maybe even give you the capacities that you need to fill it with. This is probably one of the most important maintenance tasks on your vehicle. So if you can figure that out and you can get that step down and you can do that yourself, then it's gonna open the whole world. You're gonna feel more comfortable doing things like changing fluids, changing belts, changing this, changing that, repairing this, because you already had that one big win of getting that oil change right. It gives you some general knowledge of what's going on here too, so that if you find yourself out in the field with a jam or in a bind, you know, you've at least turned wrenches around here once. You kind of are familiar with what's underneath the hood here. It's just a good thing to do, and it's gonna make you feel better about getting deeper into the do-it-yourself, working on your rig yourself kind of thing. It's like, it's the gateway mechanic project, changing your oil. All right, I gotta get this wrapped up. I gotta go pick up the wife. I'm Matt Kester. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Frugal Explorer Dad. Check out the channel, Secondhand Overland at Instagram and Facebook, or our new website, secondhandoverland.net, where you can purchase the latest, greatest secondhand overland merch and help support the channel. Until next time, be good.